Hey everyone, it's Tuesday, August 27th, and I just want to put out a quick update. We went through so many layers to get where we are now, but we're very, very close to where we want to be. Probably another week, and here's why. Because first we had a couple of things get in the way that were just killing us on time. One of our programmers is in Bangladesh, and for about a week and a half, there was some kind of political uproar that knocked him offline. And so he was missing in action for about a week and a half. That cost us. Different programmer had an issue with her husband's passport not being able to be renewed. They're actually out of the Ukraine. So I like being able to give them some work. They're refugees. But they had to fly around through a couple of countries to get that renewed properly and get back in. And that killed them for about a week. I was like, yeah. The little things that get in the way. But having said that, the crew's doing really well. We've covered a whole lot of ground. We had a lot of programmatic issues in the beginning. We figured out how to overcome them. So for instance, the phone numbers, I forget whether where I left off covering this stuff in the last recording. We found that phone numbers were calling up to 50 times at once off a single phone number. And so we thought, what? I didn't even know that was possible. And it was causing a big spam issue. And so then we turned around and said, okay, let's get that resolved by getting a bunch more phone numbers. Then we found that that it's still, not only that, but the next round looked like it got hit for spam. And we're like, what? And so we went back to check what's going on there, and it was still using the same original phone numbers. And so then we contacted the source and said, all right, what do we do about this? And they said, every time you add a new batch of phone numbers, let us know so we can resync in your account. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we went ahead and added a bunch of new phone numbers and said, go ahead and resync. And then they said they did. And then we tried again, and again, another day, the campaigns were still messed up, and it wasn't using them. And then we found out, it's because we have to create the campaigns from scratch now. So every time we create a campaign, it's kind of locked into whatever its status was before. So we had to go figure that out. So it's been a lot of little things like that, technical items, technical issues, being able to connect things to the calendar, being able to get the landing page idea to work better, get people able to go there. We found that the bot would give somebody a phone number and it would say it absolutely too fast and then immediately ask if they needed to repeat that. So the bot would sound perfectly good, the agent, I should say, would sound perfectly good until it gave the phone number. And then it suddenly sounded rapid fire. And it was also sometimes a second issue was it was not saying the number 5. There were 2 5s in a row in the phone number, and it would only say it once. So it would give a 9-digit phone number, not a 10-digit phone number. And the guy at the other end of the line would ask, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? It would be like 6552, and then, but it would say 652. Then it would say 6152. And then it would say, yes, that's right, 6352. It's like, wait a minute, what's that again? And so finally the guy's like, are you a bot? And it's saying, no, I'm a person. It was like, so just kind of like untangling items like that. Another one was when you call, sometimes you wind up calling the same phone number. It's like, hey, you're calling the same phone number. And we went to check out why, and we found it was the front desk for several different law firms in the building. And if we didn't, so when somebody asked, what law firm would you like to talk to? The assumption was, well, the one I'm calling. And the answer is, we are not a law firm. We are the front desk. So we've just been like untangling these little items and getting it cleaned up and getting it figured out. And then finally to a point where 2 good things. One, if you look close, and I know I've been just chatting away, haven't made any points yet. See call times and duration up here. And if you look down, this is like when the call started. So it's today, August 27th at 9:11 a.m. in the right time zone. That's another thing. We had to program the right time zone for everything. 9:11 a.m., 9:11 a.m. So we actually had to take our own list of area codes nationwide and program in what the corresponding time zone is in each case. So it makes all the calls at the right time. But look, 9:11, 9:11, 9:11, 9:11, all the way down to here, right? So these are all 9:11. Before that's all 9:10, right? And so we're finally at a point where we're making a bunch of calls at the same time. we got far enough along that everything's moving quite well. And so now we're just testing our own scripts, our own approaches, going through the different scenarios, studying them up in the logs. We go through all the transcripts in the written logs, and everything marked that an action should happen. There's all these actions, like send an email to this guy, or take us off your list, or call us back later, or talk to Bob when he's in on Thursday. All these actions. So we had to program in how to capture those. Another one was voicemails and IVRs. Like when you get press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Very often the agent wouldn't understand what it's hearing, and it would just start trying to speak its pitch. And so we had to train it and get it to a point where it would understand voicemails, and it would also understand front desk concepts and be able to react to that. And the last thing that we're working on now is seeing if we can get it through some plug-in tool to be able to hit a button. So when it hears to contact Acme Law Firm, press 1. To contact Martha and Jones Law Firm, press 2. To contact Smith and Wesson Law Firm, press 3. And so the agent will say the number, which is good when they do the press or say, but it's not working for pressing a phone number. It's like, And that's okay. I mean, all these things are just their own cases, but there are a lot of cases. There are a lot of voicemails. There are a lot of IVRs. There are a lot of getting a front desk. And being asked to choose an option, So most companies have learned how to handle that anyway. At least with law firms, you hear a lot more of that than somebody actually answering a phone right away. So going through that layer is just programming stuff. Script related stuff. And then, like I said, just figuring out how to press buttons, or else we have to just skip those. Now, having said that, the other thing that's pretty cool is we found chunks of lawyers get their leads without having to pay for them. They're just sort of like handing them to each other. It's just, I'm overflowing. It's reco out to the other guy. They got relationships going on. Chunks of lawyers don't. Some lawyers are getting close to retiring. Some lawyers have a lot of leads. Some lawyers need what we're doing. And so we're figuring out how to get them all into the buckets and how to reach out and get them the right way. One thing we found is very heavy is if we're getting through a gatekeeper and the gatekeeper, finds our point good, then the gatekeeper recommends that we email somebody, okay? That we not interrupt their day, but we send them an email. We're like high enough up where the gatekeeper will let them know that we called and we're going to send them the email, okay? So that's very cool. That gives us a reason to create the newsletter feed and then be able to drip on them and watch their actions as they come to the landing pages. So we've been starting to do that. We've put together a newsletter series, and it's sending people to, keeps reminding them to come to the landing page. It keeps making different points along the way. We've got a few different script angles. There are actually quite a few worthy of trying. Even though they all say kind of the same thing, how you approach it is interesting and very different. So we're getting better and faster at turning to our scripts and making script adjustments now that we're done with the base programming. The programming finally works. We can get everyone everywhere they need to be. We can make everything work for everyone the right way. But what we need now is just to work on script angles and finalize the connections for the email system to be able to get the leads into the email system automatically, so we don't have to do it by reviewing the call logs. It is very possible that the system we have here, whenever it's asking for people's emails and people give it, that it'll identify the email and then it'll put the email into the top of the funnel for the newsletter feed for the operation. Okay. With that in mind, probably another week, we're going to have all the rest of the work done that's foundational, splitting people up into buckets, figuring out what we should reach back to them with based on where they are and what they want, and being able to hit them again. And whether it's with a different phone call from using a different voice, we're now trying out different voices. That's one thing we found. When I was talking about the two numbers next to each other that it was having trouble with, like 5-5, and it was messing it up, we'd switch to a different voice and the problem would go away. So some voices just don't get that. Other voices do. It's an odd one. Otherwise, the idea would be get a Twilio number where none of the numbers are consecutive and have it forward the calls to the other phone number. And then that way we can just use the different phone number. Getting it to pause when it says the numbers was also a bit of a challenge, but we found out a few ways to do it. So, yeah, we're very close to just working on scripts to get people curious enough and locked into an action, or at least to want to lock in a call appointment to discuss. Again, when you come back to it, the calls themselves are pretty cheap on the whole, and so it doesn't take many. It's probably more expensive right now on our calls than we thought when we include all the IVRs and voicemails, because our agent is kind of waiting sometimes when it thinks it hears something in the background. Like if there's music playing and there's some commotion in the background, it's detecting a human, especially if it hears what sounds like background office space, or if it's hearing, we found even its own background, because now we've got control over backgrounds. We've got control over emotions in the voice. So yeah, we went all the way out. We figured out how to identify voicemail. So we had to go and connect things up and build connections for all these different cases. That's what's been crazy. A lot of work, but we're at the point now where all that stuff is pretty much under control. Like I say, probably another week, everything will be integrated, even sending emails automatically, getting emails into the top of the funnel with the entire funnel built out so that as people are acting in the funnel, then it's doing the right thing and getting them to want to come to the landing page and sign up for a call. Cool. So yeah, it's taken a little longer to get to this point, but like I said before, this is the truth. As we get the stuff in and we know we're dialed in properly, and it becomes more of just a numbers game. Line up the scripts, line up the angles, go through the guys like on a conveyor belt, and it's working. It's doing the right job. And we have had some people taking steps. So it's like, okay, very good, very good. A lot of it, though, is sending emails to guys and getting them to want to read the email. So we have to remind them every 3 days, for 2 or 3 weeks before they finally take an action, before they're comfortable enough taking an action. In many cases, it's going to be true. Some guys will respond quicker, but there you go. We're learning as we go and getting better at this. That's another piece, too, is that we can put in other emails into the newsletter. It just becomes another piece that we can use. And we could even build into the newsletter, we can build a way for somebody to call and talk to our agent about the details before they sign up for a real call, to schedule this with, like me, Or they can just go on by, because by the time they call in for information, they're much more the way sold. All right. I've been kind of like rambling because I'm just sort of mentally exhausted from going through all the pieces, the programming over here, the scripts over there, and everything in between. But this is exciting because here's another thing we realized. As we're getting these scripts done, all these different industries are similar. So the beginning of the call is slightly different because we're approaching them differently when we introduce ourselves to them, depending on their needs. We're talking about whether they need DUI leads, or if they need accident attorney leads, or if they need drug and abuse rehab needs, or what. And then sending them to that landing page. It's not all the same landing page. We're personalizing the landing page and the prices to their needs, right? So we're going through all those things. Now, having said that, yeah, we're getting really, really close to just the scripts. And as we feel really good about the scripts, and here's the point I want to get back to, we can scale across industries, and we can be calling all these companies even at the same time. Theoretically, we could make 10,000, 20,000 calls a day. that are all great, where the voices are great, the background noise is great. If we get a voicemail, we leave a whole different message than if we get a live person. When people need an email, they're put into the top of the funnel automatically by the system rather than us doing it manually. If people have questions, they can call in and get upfront answers before continuing. All this stuff is getting there. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, we've been doing this constantly and just kind of like growing as we go and understanding what's going on and figuring this stuff out and just learning, everything that was working and wasn't. A lot of the calls that barely went through, we found out, is because when I tried to make 50 calls at once, but the system only allowed it to make 10, it would drop 40 leads altogether. It seemed like we were burning through leads, and yet the call times for many of those leads was so short it could have been a real call. So we had to learn, how were we going to handle that? Well, we're going to call them back after a while. Maybe they didn't answer the first time around because of a reason that had to do with us or because of a reason that had to do with them. There's a bunch of reasons why that can happen. But what it does mean is we can use a sensible rule, like call them again tomorrow, or call them after 3 hours, that kind of thing. So we're labeling all the actions of the calls in real time, what happened at the end of the call and why. This is just a summary because it's easier to read, but all these things actually have details under each of them. A lot of this information we pump into a Slack channel. A lot of this information we pump into a Google Sheet. And we keep actions here and archived info there and stats here. We're starting to figure it out. So yeah, this is getting really fascinating. And being able to look up leads is simple. We're to a point where we can grab lots and lots and lots of records, call them, and it'll be the right information. So I just like it. Pretty soon we're just going to keep expanding into other industries and sending them to other landing pages. Guys, in some industries, like we found with the lawyers, they don't usually want to talk on the weekend. But you can bet that, like plumbers do, drug rehab is anytime the guy calls in is when they need you the most. You can't just say call back on Wednesday. They're going to go get their next hit. And they're going to completely fall off the bandwagon again. And so every industry is going to have a different reaction, a different style of interaction. So yeah, we're going to get really, really good at this. We're going to just do 2-3 industries at a time and keep expanding it out. Awesome. Okay, there's all that kind of news. And on the other hand, in the background, I'm grooming a couple of really, really good backlinking crews, for standard backlinks to fill in that gap in our system, that thing we've never done. We do everything else. EEAT links now, internal backlinks across our own sites now. If we're buying expired domains, we can do that. But as far as just standard backlinking into websites that are other people's and have been running differently for lots and lots of time, we haven't done that, but I'm grooming 2 teams now, and they're looking really good, and I love it because we can also make more leads happen. So yeah, I'm working on both ends of the spectrum, kind of like building the bridge from both ends towards the middle. I'm going to make this thing meet. It's a lot of work, but once it happens, theoretically, so much can happen in a day after that. Getting everyone into the funnel, theoretically, we could have 1,000 guys coming into the funnel in a day, and then 1,000 more coming into the funnel the next day, while the first 1,000 are moving down through the funnel, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's getting pretty exciting. Glad you guys have been aboard. Glad you guys helped support us so that we could get this far. This is a lot of work and a lot of development, a lot more tools than we realized we would need for all the little pieces that add up. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting where we want to go. So yeah, as far as your investment in this project, it is working. Okay, we're getting there. Probably, I don't know, 85% of the way through it. It's just a question of how you interpret. But yeah, really, we are getting there, and it's starting to look very, very promising now. I don't know if it'll be a 1 week, 2 week, 3 week thing before we're there. I just kind of record these as I have really good news for you guys, or at least news I think is worthy of sharing. But I'll tell you what, there aren't too many unknowns left. It's just down to testing different scripts and stuff. So what do you think that's worth? 15%? The final 15%? Because probably the first 85% was all that coding. Okay, excellent. Yeah, there's dedicated people on the crew, dedicated people on the backlinks, a lot of people all together involved. So yeah, this is cool. All right, I'll get you another update here in, I don't know, like a week or two, I guess. Probably a week I'll have enough really cool stuff to say. I think it'll happen faster and faster like that now because, you know, at first it's assembly, right? Into like when you build a house, right? And you start laying the foundation, the house isn't going to look interesting. There's not going to be too much to say other than, yep, we're building it. We're still threadbare, but we're getting there. Until what? Until you're like, okay, the structure's done. We're starting to put the roof on. We're starting to roll out the carpeting. We're starting to, you know, install the plumbing and spool the wiring through the house and connect everything up. It's like, ooh, you know, and that's just when things get faster because everything else is done underneath it, all the foundational support. So all you have left to do now is the final touches. Choose the roofing tile. Choose, you know, what you're going to do for wiring and how many amperes of power and therefore how many outlets you're going to put per room. Are you going to put a vacuum tubing in or not so that you don't need to take a vacuum around? You know, there's some kind of retractable cord for the vacuum in each room. Have you got modern connectivity in different places? You know, just all the fun stuff really that you've been figuring out along the way. It's just you get to finally tie that stuff together. Like when all the holes exist in the walls to just run the wiring through, right? Then, yeah, I mean, it's so easy to run the wiring through. Okay. Yep, I've been just rambling through where we are and what it means. Getting there, guys. We're figuring it out. Okay, talk to you again soon. And yeah, I really still think that we can be on track for Christmas for everybody. Because again, by the time we're to the point where we're ready to scale, we'll just go huge all of a sudden. All right, talk to you later. Take care.